Hello again and welcome to the Warhammer 40k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to thank Dustin Martin Boyd for sending in some really cool pictures of his Ukrainian themed Imperial Guard army. Thank you for sending these pictures in, they look absolutely fantastic. Really like the snow effect on those bases, and the convict mortar teams look really good as well. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they would like me to use in my videos, please post on my Facebook page. There will be a link down in the description below. Now, without further ado, let's get on with today's video, which is how to get started with Imperial Guard in 8th edition. Now, I know I have covered this video previously, but it's probably a year or so ago when I last touched on this topic. And especially with the way 8th edition changes so quickly in Games Workshop, releasing FAQs left, right and centre, I did think it was a good opportunity to touch base on this topic again. And this was also inspired by one of my commenters, apologies I can't remember your name at this point, who said, how the heck do you get started with Imperial Guard in 8th edition? I don't even know like what boxes I should be buying, what detachments I should be using. So I thought we'd have a real step-by-step guide. Just a quick one, just very, very high level of what you should be thinking about doing when getting into the Imperial Guard. Okay, so just to clarify, this video is based on the fact that you have assumed you want to play Imperial Guard. You've gone and done your internet research, you've gone and bought the codex. So that's the first thing you should do when you decide to commit to the faction. Buy the codex, then you've got skin in the game, son. Then you're going to want to commit. Okay, so you've gone and bought your codex. You've flicked through. There's a dizzying amount of options in there. Imperial Guard do have a very well developed range. For a faction that doesn't get that much love from Games Workshop, we actually do have quite a few unit options out there simply because we've been around for a long time. And that's one of the first things you should sort of really recognise when you're playing Imperial Guard. You're playing an army which has a lot of pedigree. And there's a lot of resources out there. I mean, my channel is but one small source of information. There's lots of information out there, but we're going to go through now, step by step, on what you should be doing, because there can be so much information that it can be hard to know what to follow. Okay, so the first thing to take into account when playing Imperial Guard, and this is a mistake that many veterans make when they come from different armies and start playing Guard, is that everyone is expendable. Okay, our army is at its core a horde army, whether that is hordes of tanks or hordes of infantry. Generally speaking, you'll be fielding 2-to-1, 3-to-1 models against your opponent, unless you're facing another enemy horde army. And even then, there are Imperial Guard armies out there, the way I like to play, which will out-horde every other horde army out there. Okay, life, men, material, it's all cheap in the Guard. So that is the first thing you need to realise. You're not playing Space Marines. That your men will die unnamed heroes in the field of battle. But for every one of them that falls, 10 more will take his place. And that is what you have to remember. That's the first thing that you've got to understand. Now, other factions may play fancy games with detachments. I'm going to tell you now that the detachment you want to be looking at when you're collecting your Imperial Guard army is the battalion. Okay, the battalion is a very good all-round detachment that you can put units in to field a legal match play army. Alright, it allows you to field up to 6 infantry choices, 5 elite choices, 3 fast attack, 3 heavy support, and 3 HQ. Okay, but you have to take 2 HQ, which are basically characters, and you have to take 3 troop choices. Now what I recommend you take, no questions asked, is for your 2 minimum HQ choices. And this will get you going, by the way, this advice will get you going up until about the 750 point mark. Okay? Maybe even up into like the 1,000 points. You want, as a minimum, you want to be taking 2 company commanders. Okay? Because company commanders are great buffing characters in Imperial Guard, and they give us access to orders. Won't get too much into what orders do now, because this is a very high level video, but company commanders give you access to orders, And orders are a way that Imperial Guard can make their units go from being relatively mediocre to absolutely fantastic. For example, there's an order that the Imperial Guard can do where if your company commander is within 6 inches of a friendly infantry squad of basic guardsmen, then you can tell them you can use a one-off ability, once per turn I should say, called first rank fire, second rank fire, which means that those guys get to fire double shots, which is fantastic, completely free, and each officer can do that order twice. So you can have, if you've got 2 officers, then you can tell 4 squads to double their number of rifle shots. That's an example of how powerful orders can be. So that's why you want to try and get lots of officers in your army, and the best way to do that is to take company commanders. So you want to be taking 2 company commanders. Okay, don't want to be giving them too many upgrades just now. Okay, if you want to kit them out, you can give them plasma pistols, bolt pistols, power weapons. If you want to do that, you can do. But my advice is generally, keep them cheap. They're not combat characters. They're not shooty characters. They're buffing characters. The next thing you want to be looking at is your troop choices. And let me tell you, you're going to have to get very familiar. You're going to have to get on first name terms with the infantry squad. Now, infantry squad, it's a little confusing because obviously infantry is like a catch-all term. In the Guard, when we talk about infantry squads, we're not talking about some generic, maybe it's veterans, maybe, like Space Marines, maybe it's a tactical squad, maybe it's a scout squad, maybe it's a Stern Guard squad. None of that. Infantry squad is an actual unit in the Imperial Guard. It's capital I for infantry, capital S for squad. It's basic 10-man squad. You can't take more than 10 guys. You can't take less than 10 guys. They come as 10. They come with 9 regular soldiers and 1 sergeant. Sergeant is same price as everyone else. They're 4 points per model, and sergeant gives you an extra leadership, so you leadership 7 rather than leadership 6, and you also get an extra attack. So keep your sergeant safe. You want, typically, unless there's very extenuating circumstances, you want your sergeant to be the last model to die. Okay, he is very important. Your sergeant must be given a las pistol and chainsword. You cannot give him a rifle, sadly. Now, you can give him a power weapon for close combat, or you can give him a bolter, or you can give him something else. But generally speaking, my advice would be, remember that golden rule at the beginning. Life is cheap. Don't spend points on useless upgrades. Okay, add a bit of character here and there. And if you've got a tactic in mind, like if you're going pure close combat, then give power weapons to your sergeants. That makes sense. But if you want a general squad, then you want to just be taking the sergeant with a las pistol and chainsword. Keep him nice and cheap. Keep him basic. Again, his job is there is to give you an extra leadership. Now, you can also take a heavy weapon and you can take a special weapon in that infantry squad. But for now, my recommendation would be you kind of want to keep those guys just with las guns. Maybe, I would consider definitely either giving them a cheap flamer or giving them the cheap grenade launcher. Okay. But for your basic, when you're starting out, before we get too complicated, you just want to be looking at guys with rifles. You want to be putting bodies on the ground. You can add 1 special weapon to each squad. Go for it. Flamers are always a great choice. Grenade launchers are always a great choice. They come in the box. Go with that. So once you've got your 2 company commanders and you've got your 3 infantry squads, now you have to decide, you want to fill out the rest of your battalion if you can. So you definitely want to be looking at getting more infantry. People who have followed this channel for long enough know that infantry is key to the success of the Imperial Guard. Too many Imperial Guard commanders will take the bare minimum of infantry and they will suffer. They will suffer very heavily for that. Any good competitive Imperial Guard army will be fielding 100 infantry minimum. Even in friendly games, that's what you want to be looking at. Okay, and when I mean 100 infantry, I mean 10 capital I infantry, capital S squads, 10 infantry squads. That's what you want to be aiming for. Now, you can only take 6 in one battalion, so when you start getting more than 6, you're going to want to start starting to look at your second battalion. But for now, we'll keep it, that 100 infantry is a lofty goal that is long way in the future. For now, we're looking at about the 750 point mark in game. You probably want to be looking about 5 to 6 infantry squads, 50 to 60 infantry models. Okay. Now, infantry with a few special weapons and sergeants isn't going to win you the game. It's going to help you win the game, but on their own, that's not really going to be enough. You're going to need some heavy hitters. Okay. And this is where you really want to be looking to the heavy support slot. Okay. Heavy support section. This is where you want to find your tanks and artillery, because this is the second part, the other half of every Imperial Guard army. You have infantry and you have tanks, and the premier tank that you want to be looking at is the Lehman Russ battle tank. Okay, the Lehman Russ battle tank is point for point probably one of the best tanks available in the whole of Warhammer 40k. Space Marine players hate them. Okay, because they wish they had them. Space Wolf players quietly cry into a corner because they used to be able to take them and they can't take them anymore. That was a long time ago. It wasn't second, third edition, but they can't take them anymore. The Lehman Russ battle tank is your main battle tank, MBT. That's what it is, and it is fantastic at doing its job. It's an all-round absolute just hunk of metal which you can use to blast your enemies to pieces. Now, again, you might be asking, but there's so many different varieties of Lehman Russ. It's like the Exterminator, the Executioner, the Eradicator, the Vanquisher, the Demolisher. If you start looking at Forgewood, you've got the Annihilator. You've got so many different kinds. Again, if you're just starting out, my recommendation is you want to be looking at the bog standard Lehman Russ. That is the Lehman Russ battle tank, the LRBT, Lehman Russ battle tank. Okay, that is the version that comes with the battle cannon. That is a good all-round weapon. We won't get into the details of it now, but the battle cannon has a decent rate of fire, so it can handle regular infantry and hordes. It has good strength, so it can target tanks. Pardon me. It's got good armor penetration value. It's a good all-rounder. It's not a specialist weapon, but you can take that Lehman Russ battle tank into any battlefield situation and be comfortable with that it will be able to do damage to the enemy no matter what it faces. Okay. And you probably want to really be taking at least a pair of those. Okay. At least a pair. Because one Lehman Russ on its own will be the focus of all your enemy's anti-tank firepower. So really, when we're looking at the 750 points to 1,000 points mark, we want to be looking at about, which is a small to middle-sized game. You want to be looking at 2 to 3 Lehman Russes and about 60 infantry, and that's all very doable, very, very doable. And you will be facing across from you. You will not be facing that. Across from you, you'll be facing half that. Most people at 750 points to 1,000 points, they have to choose between do they take lots of infantry or do they take lots of tanks, and you as an Imperial Guard player can get both. Okay, because your stuff is not, how to put this, it's not great. On its own, individually, an Imperial Guard squad cannot go toe-to-toe with almost any infantry out there. We're talking main infantry, we're not talking like grots or anything like that. Tactical squads, anything like that, on its own with no support whatsoever. A basic Imperial Guard squad will not live to see the light of day. A basic Lehman Russ on its own will struggle in one-on-one tank duels. It's just not what it's just not what it can do, especially if it doesn't get the first shot off. All our stuff only hits 50% of the time. We only hit on a 4+ nearly universally across the board. There are ways around that, but again, high-level video. So that wants to be the cornerstone of your army, the 3 pillars. You want your officers, your company commanders, you want your infantry. You want to be looking at about 50, 60 infantry, and you want to be looking at 2 to 3 Lehman Russes. And that is where you want to be aiming for in like the first 6 months of you playing 40k. Well, first 6 months of a year. You know what I mean? The first period of time. It depends on how much money and time you have available to you. But that is your core benchmark of your army. Now once you've got your 50, 60 infantry nailed down, and you've got your, you know, three company commanders, and you've got your 3 Leman Russes, that is your, when you've got that core, then you can, you know, I would recommend you start branching out and finding what you like. You might want to start adding some fast cavalry tanks into your army. Start looking at hellhounds, absolutely fantastic flame tanks, really powerful, very competitive choice. You might want to start adding some elite commando units to your army. Start looking at veterans, Tempestus Scions. You might really want to start adding some close combat nastiness to your list. Bulgrins, Ogrins, even Minister and Priests with buffing a load of infantry. You also, at that point, might want to start looking at different regiments. Regimental traits, again, we won't go into it too much detail here, but you can pick a regimental trait and it will give you an army-wide buff. For example, Cadians, if any model in your army stays still, can reroll 1s to hit in the shooting phase. Cadians are a very popular choice because they're the most supported model line that Games Workshop offers. But once whatever regiment you may have chosen to go with, once you've played a few games with them and you've built your initial small force, you will want to consider trying other regiments out. So what I'm trying to say is, when you get that core, you can start expanding. But until you get that core, I would highly recommend you follow the advice that I've given here. I'm not saying that advice will win you every single game that you play, but it will give you a good feel of the basic principles of the Guard, which is massive infantry and hardcore tanks backed up by some good officers. You may want to, if you find, and if you know your local meta will vary. We're talking about people who are starting out with Imperial Guard here. I would be surprised, and starting out with 40k in general. I would be surprised if you were going off and playing tournaments in the first 2-3 months of you playing 40k. You might do if you are hardcore. Well done. But the point is, that's your starting point. It'll get you used to the basic tenets of the Imperial Guard. Once you've got that nailed down, it'll be up to you to decide, what do you like? Do you like more tanks? Go and buy more Leman Russes. Are you finding that your infantry are the ones that are really doing it for you? I love, personally, mass infantry. I think it's extremely powerful and competitive, but it is difficult. You're having to move a lot of models around. Start buying more infantry box sets. But the point is you really want to be going for that core of models. You really want to be going for that core. And once you've got that sorted, none of those models that I've suggested, this is the key thing, right? This is what I'm going to end on. Company commanders, officers, infantry squads, Leman Russes. None of those things that I have suggested will ever go out of fashion, will ever be irrelevant. No matter what edition there has ever been, Leman Russes have always been a decent choice. Sometimes they've been amazing, like an 8th edition. Sometimes they've just been okay. But they've never been a bad choice. Likewise with the infantry squads. Infantry squads in the Imperial Guard, you are always going to use them. No matter what the edition is, you're always going to use them. And company commanders, you're always going to use them. So no matter what edition happens, you will be able to use those 3 basic units. And likewise, if you end up playing with the army for a while, and then deciding, actually, I don't like the Imperial Guard, it's not for me, then all the models you have bought there, you will be able to sell very easily and recoup your costs. Everyone is always looking for Leman Russes, everyone is always looking for officers, and everyone is always looking for infantry squads, because they are the basic principles. So it gives you a little bit peace of mind. I'm not saying you'll make your money back, but you can offset some of the cost. And you will find it very easy to shift those models. You won't have to give them away at some ridiculous price, like if you were selling Word Vein Psychers. But anyway, I hope that video has been useful. It is a very basic, high-level video. I appreciate that, but it's just to get you started. After that, go and check out some more tactics, not just on my channel, but on lots of other channels. Go and do some more reading, and take your collection to the next level. But for now, that would be my recommendation. You want to be looking at a single battalion, 2 company commanders, 6 infantry squads, and 3 Leman Russes with battle cannon, heavy bolters on the sponsons. That's my recommendation. So, if anyone else, any of my regular viewers, or anyone who's just starting out, have got any questions, put them down in the comment section below. And if anyone has got any advice, any of my regular viewers have got any advice for newbies starting out with Guard, put that down in the comment section below. I want this video to just be a source of information that people can stumble across when they're getting into 8th edition, that they can pick it up and they can get half the information from this video, and then they can get the other half of the information from the comment section down below, the questions and answers down there. So thank you guys for listening. I hope this has been a useful video. Like I said, any questions down below, and of course, I'll see you guys next time.